Hi.
Hello.
So I assume that clip was from something that we talked about last week.
Yes. The egg freezing.
Yes.
That's coming up on season 2. Yeah.
What happens to Mary Jane going forward that you can actually talk about?
Well, we can definitely talk about the egg freezing.
Because this most recent episode was very intense and serious.
Well, yeah. Sex trafficking is an issue that I've been, working on for many, many years as a sexual assault survivor myself, being named to the President's National Advisory Committee for Violence Against Women. It's an issue that is an epidemic in this country that largely gets swept under the rug. The fact that Mara wrote it into, the second episode was huge. And everyone kept saying, well, what happens? Well, what happens to these, to Polly, to the other girl?
The 15-year-old.
And the reality is, it's open-ended. We don't know. In real life, we don't generally know what happens to a lot of these girls. And she didn't want to put a bow on it. She didn't want to wrap it up in 44 minutes because that's not reality. And while on the one hand, I wanted to save Polly, but on the other hand, I wanted to, just like Mara Brockakeel always does, stay true to the reality.
So let's talk about Mary Jane and what happens to her. So the egg freezing.
There are 3 love interests this season. One that we've seen in the first couple episodes, David, who...
Oh, David.
David. He does look good without his shirt, doesn't he? And then there's another gentleman that will be joining us in episode 3. I thought we should have a little diversity of gentlemen. So this one is a little more chocolatey, a little more beefy. And he's also a friend, thank God. So, I don't know if I'm able to say his name. I think they want to kind of debut it later on today. So look out on social media.
We won't ruin it.
We don't ruin it, but it's a chocolatey goodness.
Is that the picture that I saw?
Yes, that's the picture
holla.
that you saw.
Well, all right.
Mama's itch gets scratched in episode 3.
He's not ugly.
He is not ugly. God bless him.
What of yourself do you see in Mary Jane?
What in myself? A career woman that struggles to have it all and hasn't quite figured it all out yet. As I think most of my friends, at least most of my family members, we do really well in one area, but then there's something else that's not quite as great. Sort of trying to live up to that having it all myth, and sort of being really, really hard on ourselves, hard on other people for not being perfect. I definitely see that, those similarities.
And I'm sure you guys agree, Mary Jane is such a unique character because you really show her rough edges. Like, she's not cute, she's not spunky, she's not adorable, she's kind of a monster sometimes, you know?
A monster, but she's real. I mean, think of the people you love the most. They're not amazing 24/7. There are moments, if we had cameras in their homes, where you'd see them being less than graceful or less than compassionate or less than charming or forgiving. And that's what we see. We just opted not to make her perfect. We made her imperfectly perfect and flawed and real. I always point out that, you see Mary Jane on the toilet. You never see characters on the toilet.
With her phone by her bed.
Well, or her phone by her bed, or her obsessively checking her phone, or her, her IG stalking people, or her Facebook stalking people, or her man's new, lady. And, in the first episode, she's puking. We've all puked, but we don't really see people have these moments on TV. And every time I'm reading the script, I'm like, well, when keeping it real goes right, I hope. Hope they don't mind me puking or in the shower or on the toilet. But I mean, think about like our day-to-day lives, how much we do on the toilet. Because we all have our phones in there, we're returning emails, we're balancing our checkbook.
One time to yourself.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's when you can really focus, get some good reading in. So I'm glad we show her being normal,
And on a side note, I would be livid if someone ruined my Le Creuset pan. Livid. Even go
I didn't
there.
know what that was. I had no idea. I'm not much of a baker. I mean, my baking is like go to the grocery store, get like the ready-made tins and make cupcakes, and then I throw those out. So I had no idea. I didn't know how to pronounce it. I was like, well, what is the what? why can't you have a regular oven? Jesus. So it was a challenge for me to even learn what the hell it was, much less how to pronounce it. But then cut to, as all of our gifts were coming in for our wedding registry, apparently, obviously, Dwayne registered for, still don't know how to say it.
Le Creuset.
Yes. And so we have 2 of them.
The best cookware on the planet.
He doesn't bake either, so I don't know why we needed 2.
You can send them to me, I'll take them.
You can have them.
They're great.
But apparently they're great. I'm still baffled.
What's the toughest part of Mary Jane for you to play? I guess both the toughest and the most enjoyable.
I love that she has no filter. You know, I've played a lot of characters who say all the right things and they have the perfect zingers and they never are left with egg on their face. So I love playing those moments. The most challenging thing isn't in the moment when I'm doing it. It's later, you know, when I'm on social media worried or obsessing about how people are going to receive, you know, Mary Jane, or people thinking me and Mary Jane are one and the same, or that I'm writing it, or it's all my life. That's more like nerve-wracking and, you know, challenging, but I love it. Like every day I go to work and I just dive in. It's, you know, it's a good time. Like, you know, when I talk to my friends, all of us love going to work, and we've all been at those jobs. We were like, please make it stop. But when I talk to Carrie, when I talk to Taraji, you know, when I talk to Jada or Nicole Beharie on Sleepy Hollow, we get to dive into characters that are so juicy and so delicious and so flawed. You know, Viola, we're all living the dream, so I don't have much to complain about.
Do you think there are more roles and opportunities opening up for women of color on TV and in movies, or is it still kind of a closed road?
You know, I would be remiss to only look at how Black women are doing, because when we talk about diversity, it doesn't just stop with African American women. So I could be happy that there's, you know, me and Carrie and Taraji
Viola.
and Viola and Nicole and Jada and Tika and Tracee Ellis Ross. But then where are our Latinas and our Asian American sisters and our Middle Eastern sisters? Like, there's not enough. So I kind of liken, you know, there is improvement, but it's not at the rate that we'd like. It's kind of like being 12, wanting boobs, and they're growing, but not as fast as you'd like. So there's always room, or a lot of room, to improve.
Were you surprised by how much Mary Jane has resonated with people? I mean, you told me that amazing story of the Indian gentleman on the plane.
Yeah. It was really shocking, the first season, how many people and the diversity of people, you know, men and women of all ages, races, ethnicities, saying, you know, I know Mary Jane, or I am Mary Jane. Do you have a camera in my house? You know, like the older Indian gentleman who sat next to me on the plane, who was all in. Like, he's like, I caught it up on Netflix, and this is, you know, why did you steal the sperm? That's really what he wanted to know. Like, is this a thing that he should be looking out for?
I mean, if we all had Davids in our lives, we'd probably be doing
you
the same
know,
thing.
you might become little sperm.
He's a fine
cakes.
genetic
It's hard
specimen.
to say. But no, now, especially, you know, with Netflix, because for a lot of people, for whatever reason, feel like maybe BET is not for me. You know, it's like me thinking, you know, AMC is not for me. Mm-hmm. It's a channel. It has good programming. BET is a channel. It has good programming, and check it out. But I think with Netflix, it broadens the audience. And this season, we've seen even more people tuning in, not wanting to have to wait for, you know, it to air on Netflix.
What does your husband think of Mary Jane?
He thinks she's delicious and you know, exciting, and you know, it's funny. Like, they all started calling me Mary Jane. So, you know, we're on vacation, you know, LeBron will be like, Mary Jane, get the raft out of the pool, and I'm like, okay. It's a character that everyone kind of likes. I'm sure he wished she wasn't as sexually active. You know, he magically wasn't as upset about, you know, her masturbatory moments, because they were alone. So, you know, but no, he loves that I have a job that I love, and I'm fulfilled in a way that he is not responsible for.
That's a great answer. And before we turn this over to the audience, where do you want to see her go in the next, I guess, I mean, you guys were just renewed for season 3, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Where do you want to see her go by the end of season 3, if you could kind of outline it?
Well, I just started reading the episodes for season 3, and I'm sort of like shocked.
She doesn't get nicer and sweeter.
Not exactly. She's faced with different challenges, as you guys will see as the season progresses, and certainly the season finale of season 2 is crazy. So you see season 3 sort of picking up where that left off. I think most people on the street want her to have a man and want her to have, a baby. But for me, I want her to have career fulfillment. I want her to have a love that's a sanctuary, not the storm. I would love to see her relationship with her family improve, and for her to have friendships that are a little bit more even. So,
yeah, because she's a pretty tough friend. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to go on a bar crawl with Mary Jane, that's for certain.
No. No, she's not too forgiving.
All right, guys, I'm sure you have some questions for the lovely Gabrielle.
I know this isn't the shy audience.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
You are so pretty. It's a little
Thank
distracting. So this week we had Spike Lee here, who was talking about his film that was actually funded from one of the crowdsourcing. I believe it was GoFundMe, if I'm not mistaken. Kickstarter. So my question to you is, with this happening, and we touched on, possibilities for more colored people to be on television and things like that. How do you feel that may play into more opportunities for people of color? And do you support those initiatives?
Absolutely. Any way you can get your projects made by any means. I'm about the by any means necessary philosophy for most things in life. So if that is a way that you can fund your dream project, by all means, go at it full steam. What I started doing with my producing partner, Nzinga Stewart, we started optioning material. So we optioned a book called The Vow, about 8 years ago, and it was a long process. The Vow turned into With This Ring, which just aired on Lifetime to huge numbers. And as much as I'm proud of my acting career, I've never been more gratified providing employment to worthy actors. So again, whether that be optioning material, books, magazines, just reading random articles on the internet, watching YouTube videos and trying to find inspiration, and then taking it out. And if no studio wants to fund us or back us, and no television network wants to fund us or back us, knowing that we have other options to get funding to make sure our voices are out there and we are represented by any means necessary. So.
Hi. Do you have audition advice for actors that are starting out?
Okay, so a lot of people differ in this, but I believe in being off book. If you have the time to be off book, be off book. There is nothing more distracting, I think, not only for the actor, but for the casting people, is to hear paper rustling and paper in front of your face. I've always tried, unless it's one of those situations where you get there and get the material and it's impossible to be off book. But as much as you can, know the material in and out. But don't be so firm in all your choices that you can't take direction. So I always say, well, this is what I came up with. Is there anything you want to tell me before I get started? Things that you've seen, before I got in here that you hated, or choices, that are so far off. Let them give you, whatever their response is. You do your version, and then say, I would love some feedback, any notes, and then take those notes, and make the adjustments, and then go. But when you have a command of the material, you can do it easily. But when you're still trying to, find your place, it's really hard to take direction and make adjustments on the fly. And you look a lot more impressive if you're off book. So.
Right over here?
Yes.
Hi. How important is it to you to use social media when you're engaging with your fans?
It's incredibly important. I mean, it's the only way that I really see people, or get feedback. Sometimes it's feedback that I'm not particularly, interested in. But sometimes it's really important feedback. But it's really the only way. I'm not going to run into everybody on the street or at the grocery store or, at the gym or whatever. So it's a great way to shrink the world and to get immediate response. Twitter is obviously the easiest to kind of see it and respond to it quickly. But there's nothing like, it was weird, okay, total sidebar. But so last night we're at this event and I run into all these people that I follow on Instagram but I don't really know. And I'm like, oh, baby, it's Chrissy Ford. And he's like, Chrissy, that's her name? I'm like, I don't know, that's her Instagram name. I don't know if that's her name. So how about it's not her name? Her name is actually Chrissy Rutherford, but her Instagram name is Chrissy Ford. But I fanned out. But so it's like, having those times to sort of shrink the world where you're like, okay, so now we can talk. We're here together. Or, Genevieve Jones I got to meet last night, or Lewis Hamilton. Like, he's huge overseas. I don't run into him, hanging out. But it was like, oh, God, okay, so I follow you on Instagram. Tell me about, what's going on. So you get that kind of closeness that you just really, wouldn't have otherwise.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
So I recently saw The Door, the short film that you did.
Yeah,
Yes,
with
I
Ava.
loved it.
Yes.
How was it working with Ava DuVernay and Bradford and that whole cast?
Well, let me take it back. So I know Ava from her being a unit publicist on movies that I did early in my career. And so I knew her as this supportive woman that was a champion of film and actors. So when she came to me and Prada and Miu Miu were like, do you want to do this short film with Ava and her whole team, from middle of nowhere, I was like, are you kidding me? Bradley is, to say a genius, I don't think that's even a big enough word. He's so incredibly talented, and I'm just lucky enough that he shot a short with me. He's going to be, just mark my words, massive. He's going to win multiple awards. He is the future, the present, the past. I mean, he's everything. And to be honest, I think she got robbed, of an Oscar nomination for Best Director. How do you have the film be nominated, but none of the actors? I mean, I love the song. I think, Common and John are friends, but it's a great song. It's definitely deserving. It will absolutely win, but the performances, the woman that shaped those performances, the man that created the vision, I don't understand how you can deny Ava or David, in my opinion, but what do I know? Yes, sir. Oh, my lip. Okay, so this is just a sidebar. My lip sweats a lot. So my team back there is like, your lip, child, your lip. Pardon me and my sweaty lip.
And which brings us to our last question. You've been in this industry a long time. How do you deal with feedback, criticism, positive or negative?
You take it all with a grain of salt. I mean, early in my career, I was named the next it girl. And you're like, well, I think we should, I should really believe this. And then you read, you're the worst thing ever, you should never leave the house. And you're like, we should throw that out. Yeah. And eventually you just kind of get to a place where they kind of cancel each other out. You're going to hear the naysayers and the people who think you suck, and they're going to be the people who think you're the second coming of, pockets. But it's usually somewhere in the middle. If you believe all your praise, there's nowhere to go. Yeah. You're not going to grow. And if you believe, every negative thing about you, you're not going to get out of bed. So I try to be reasonable. People whose opinion I respect, I listen. Like when Regina King, she directs 4 episodes this season of Being Mary Jane, and she's a good friend, but she never let me slide. We shoot a lot. We shoot almost 10 pages a day, which is sort of unheard of in television. And you can get a little lazy, to be honest. And she would never let me be lazy. She'd be like, G, come on now. So it's nice to have people who will call you on your shit. And can we say shit on the internet?
We're grown-ups, come on.
Who will, if my lip can be sweaty, I can say shit. So who will call you on your shit and make you accountable and make you better.
That's
and
the thing, right?
so that's huge.
So thank you so much to the Le Creuset spokeswoman, Gabrielle Union, who's also starring in Being Mary Jane, and who's friends with LeBron James.
Yeah. We were joking backstage,
Yeah.
like, a lot of times they'll be like, we really want to talk about the show. And then they'll be like, oh, yeah, no, we'll totally talk about the show. And then they'll be like, so tell us about when LeBron left. Were you all devastated?
And I was joking that
How
that
many
was going
years
to be
did
my
you
first
cry?
question.
This is terrible. What are you guys going to do? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you guys so much for coming out on this very cold day.